Benjamin Lindsay here, managing editor at Backstage. Thank you so much for joining us over the last few days for our first ever Backstage Fest. If you've missed it, we've had masterclasses with Catherine Hahn, Barry Jenkins, Sarah Bareilles, Neil Patrick Harris, ensemble discussions with the Black Lady Sketch Show and Mythic Quest, a casting directors panel. The list goes on. 14 panels with 45 guest speakers. It's really been such an awesome experience to host this for the first time ever for you guys. We are lucky today to be wrapping it up with Joel Kinnaman. He's currently the star of For All Mankind on Apple TV Plus and also on HBO and HBO Max's reboot of In Treatment with Uzo Aduba. I'm really excited to pick his brain a little bit and couldn't ask for a better person to help wrap things up on Backstage Fest. Before I pull Joel in, just a shout out for the Backstage Fest, or for folks who are interested in Backstage Fest. Those videos should be uploaded onto our YouTube channel over the next week or so. And for a continued running list of everything coming up on our calendar for Backstage's on-camera programming, go to backstage.com/magazine for all the info that you need to know there. All right, so let me see if Joel's in the audience with us now, and should be able to pull him up. Joel, I see you here, so I'm going to send an invite your way.
Yeah.
Hey, Joel, how's it going?
Yo, good. How you doing?
Good, good. My name's Ben. I'm the managing editor here at Backstage. It's so great to meet you, though.
Plug in my headphones here, see if this works.
Yeah, I can hear you okay now. Can you hear me?
Here we are. Perfect.
You got me? All right.
I got you.
Cool. Well, thank you for finding the time to chat today.
My pleasure.
Been
My pleasure.
Catching up. For All Mankind, of course, just wrapped its second season last month, and then In Treatment premiered last week. I guess just to speak to the former project first, it's my understanding you're filming season 3 right now. Is that right?
Yes, we just wrapped up block 2 out of 5, so we're we're well underway with the third season.
Exciting. How's it going?
This season is on another level. I felt like we loved the show from the beginning, and it was such a good feeling shooting it, and I thought the writing was excellent, and like the casting, like every person playing the tiniest little role, everyone was really solid, and I didn't feel like we had any weak links anywhere. But the show kind of came out a little bit in a vacuum. It felt like people weren't really, we were in the first batch of the Apple TV Plus shows, and it just didn't feel like the awareness wasn't really there. But we really believed in it, and then when we shot the second season, we all felt like, wow, we're really hitting our stride here creatively, and it was really good to see that the second season sort of hit home, both with audiences and also with critics, and now I feel like we're really building on that. The tempo and the scale of the third season is really like on another level. It has a lot more pace. It's grander in scale. We're like reaching deeper into sort of sci-fi territory, and it's cool. It's also nice. Like, I haven't been on a multiple season show for several years, actually since The Killing, actually, which was my first job in the US. And I forgot that feeling of like shooting a show while people are watching it, and also when people really like the show, it's a great feeling to be working on a show at the same time as this sort of positive buzz around it, and it makes everyone that's working on it, it feels more important, and it's just a great feeling. And then you can tell also the actors that are coming in, they're like watching the show, and so it's a really good feeling. We've been the casting on this show has been really, really good. It's also one of the benefits of shooting in LA. We got everyone here,
Right.
So even with small roles, we get really high level people, and also like the background in LA is so good. You know, it's mostly actors, and it
Mhm.
really matters. It really matters. People don't understand um, the whole frame comes alive in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only do you have all the actors there, but especially after the last 14 months or so, everyone is ready to get back to work. So
Yeah,
it's a blessing for all parties. Absolutely.
yeah.
You mentioned that this is the first time, now going into season 3, this is the first time since The Killing that you've done a TV show like this. What's gratifying about that for you and this character in particular, just as a performer, to be able to sink your teeth into it, to explore this character for several years now? What's that experience been like?
Um, well, it's particularly interesting in the case of For All Mankind. You know, I think anytime when you do a multiple season show, it's like the you know you really you know the characters so well, you know, and it really seeps into the fabric of your being. Like the role becomes an extension of you in a way when you do it several years. And I think for any kind of role to work and then have a break and come back, that sort of resting period, you really mature into the character.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel often I have the sense that you kind of lean back a little bit more. You have it's easier to relax into it and know that you know what you want to portray is already coming out. Um, so I feel like it becomes a little bit more effortless, and you know that's always what we want to achieve. And but here on For All Mankind, it's interesting also because we're doing these big jumps in time between seasons. You know, it's usually 10 years between the seasons, so you know you become a little bit of a new person every 10 years. There's actually several like studies on personality that have come to that conclusion that you know every 10 years we basically become a new person. And I think all of us, if we think back of who you were 10 years ago and your outlook on the world, how you viewed yourself, it's very different. So it's a different person. I don't know if I'd get along that well with my 10 year
Yeah, I
younger
don't know if I
version of
want to think
myself.
about that too deeply to dig up some things. Yeah.
Oh, what an annoying person.
Yeah, but it's a fun way to be able to dive into the psychology of this character for sure. I'd love to hear a bit more, whether it's directly this character Edward or look into the span of your other roles. We here at Backstage, we are for kind of the working actors and creators of the world. What does your character building process typically look like? Is it pretty instinctual? Are you leaning on technique and training? Is it a mix of the two? What's kind of the process, if you will?
Fun. This is a fun conversation to have. Um, I try to invent a new method for every role. You know,
Mhm.
that's it, not being method. Um, I'm when I start working on a role, I'm hyper aware of where my intuition and my imagination takes me in terms of how I want to prepare for this role and
Mhm.
what I want to do. So you know, hopefully each character will have its own process. But then there's some things that I kind of always do. I almost always start with the tension of the person. Where physically does that tension lie?
Mhm.
And that leads me to how does this person walk?
Mhm.
And when I found the tension and the walk of the person, it gives me an idea of how that person looks at other people, if it's confident, if it's hiding, or you know, and so and usually like the tension and the way that you look at other people and the way that you walk, it's going to affect the way that you talk.
Mhm.
So I usually actually I start kind of outside, working my way in. Um,
Interesting.
and I don't always stick with the first idea, but it gives me a starting point. And
Yeah.
so for me, the walk is very important, and that's why I love, you know, when you come to costume, and because you know what you wear is also going to affect how you feel and how you walk and how you relate physically to the other
Yeah. Yeah.
people. So it's sort of like a theater approach to building the character, but that's those are like the sort of tenets of what I always do. And then I do a bunch of other things, you know, with dialects and you know, physical transformation if I want the person to you know, be heavier or lighter or you know, in shape or not,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and those kind of
I,
things.
yeah, I like that a lot. I like that a lot. And with something, obviously, with For All Mankind, you're kind of top billing on this show versus something like In Treatment. You are a piece to the grander whole, the grander ensemble. Are you? Does the character work for a more supporting role? Are you still doing like backstory? Are you still doing things that we don't necessarily see on screen to kind of make it a full-fledged person, or how do you kind of communicate that to an audience that this is a full person?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. Sometimes I really like dig into those, you know, dig into the backstory and kind of define that. But um, many times I don't. Many times
Mm-hmm.
you know, I have a sort of a vague idea of you know, where the character comes from, and then, but you know, but it's very important for me where you're coming into this specific situation,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes, you know, if it is a backstory is very important for this particular period of this character's life, you know,
Mm-hmm.
then you need to know those things because you're going to react differently because of it. I mean, I think it's always good to have a good backstory, but sometimes it just doesn't seem so important to me. Um, and um, I don't really, I don't prepare differently depending on if my character is, you know, a big part of the show or not. You know, I'm preparing for to play this character, and you
Yeah.
know, that character is going to be the lead of any show it's on, depending on if someone's got one scene in it or every scene in the film
Yeah, yeah,
series.
that's a good way to
You
look
know,
at
you always got the lead in your own show.
it. Yeah, absolutely. I like that. Well, to take us back to the early days of your career, obviously you got your start in your native Sweden before kind of breaking out here with projects like The Killing. What did those early days look like for you professionally? Were you kind of consistently working from the get, or did you go through dry spells, any periods of doubt? How did you kind of roll with the ebbs and flows that naturally come with an acting career?
In Sweden, you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So you know, I started out basically applying to theater schools, and for me, that was how I viewed the profession. You have to get an education, and I did some children's theater right before I got into the first theater school. I went to a preparatory theater school. It was still a very advanced professional school, but it wasn't the National Theater School. And in Sweden, the National Theater School has very high status, and you know, there's
Mm-hmm.
several successful actors that haven't gone there, but the majority go to that school. And
Mm-hmm.
so I went there for a year. I got a couple of small film. I got a small film role right before I started that school, and um, and then I went there for a year, and then I was applying for the National Theater School while I was going there, and then I got in. I think it was like on my fourth attempt or something to the National Theater School. Um, I got in there, and right before I started the National Theater School, I had another smaller role, I think, in a film. Um, and you know, I didn't have so much ebb and flow career-wise. I had a, you know, couple of dark moments where I didn't feel like I was going to be able to do this profession. I had really bad stage fright.
Mm-hmm.
I threw up every time before I went on stage for the first 3 4 years.
Wow.
And then I started to also get these like panic attacks on stage. I'd like black out and just like have no clue of what I was gonna say, and then like really embarrassing, you know, where the show didn't go on. It's you know, that kind of
Wow.
really. So, and for me, finding acting was the first time in my life where I felt that I had the potential to do something you know, meaningful, and I
Mhm.
hadn't found anything before that where I felt even remotely good at. Um, so you know, I just felt pretty lost in life and just didn't have a direction or a path in anything. I was just kind of hustling and working in restaurants and construction
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
you know, trying to make money for the day, you know.
Mhm.
And then when I found acting, it was like my whole life opened up, and all of a sudden I had a direction and a path, and I was, you know, I felt like I was a person for the first time. I felt like I had a direction. So when these sort of nervous breakdowns started to occur, I was starting to think that, you know, maybe I just don't have the constitution, like the physical abilities to do this, and that was such a devastating thought, you know, that it was you know, it was it just, it was impossible for me to imagine to have to give up. There was nothing else, you know. It was just dark hole underneath me. And so then I had this, and this is going into a long rambling story, but I got into this. I was looking at these as sort of like demons that I had, you know, these, you know, these voices that were, it was like working against me, and every time I was trying to challenge myself in some way, they would like cripple me.
Mhm.
And so then, but I was so afraid of the idea of giving up because there was nothing else. So then for somehow I found this courage to think that, well, what is the worst thing that these voices, like these demons, could face? What is the worst thing I could do to them? And then I realized like it would be to do a difficult monologue um, on stage. That's what was most terrifying, and that, you know, my knees just like grew weak just thinking of that idea. But then I think the fear of giving up was so much worse, so I just went for it. And it was fortunate because I had just had this really bad like panic attack situation in school, and then the next thing we had this was our own project. We had a month to do our own thing, and
Mhm.
everyone else kind of took it as a break. You know, there were 4 or 5 people that just did one scene for a month, and I did this really difficult play called Howie the Rookie. It's actually a two-part monologue. It ended up being about 90 minutes long, and I mean really high difficulty degree, and I ended up creating like 16 different characters um, that all had a different body and a different voice,
Wow.
and I just dove into that like an obsessed person, and 9 days into it, I knew it by heart. Because I was like literally doing it day and night. It was like my whole world. I just engulfed myself into this. I just did not stop working. I was like literally like an insane person. And I showed it to some people after maybe 2.5 weeks, and after 3 weeks I started playing it in front of audiences, and then you know, we had sort of a premiere or whatever for the school after a month, and then you know, I got some, you know, professional people looking at it. The National Theater ended up picking it up, so I started playing it professionally while was into school.
Yeah.
So and I never stumbled on a word. um, I didn't have like a hesitation on it, that like moment became my like core tenet, the foundation of my confidence
Mhm.
after. And I found a way to sort of to find I found a way to challenge my fears, and if there was one thing that sort of separated me from some of the other very talented people that I grew up with in the acting community in Sweden, and a lot of them are doing great. But but I think if there was one thing that maybe gave me the confidence to aim higher was this, and there
Mhm.
was so many things that kind of came to me after, that would have felt like really scary challenges that I maybe would have, you know, found a way to avoid, now felt easy, and I just jumped to it. And so I was sort of in that mindset when I came out of acting school, that I could do anything. And
Yeah.
um, and it was a pretty like steady upward trajectory, like it. But it's also, you know, it's very much how you view it. You know, I
Hmm.
had several, I had a lot of roles. There was a bunch of big things in Sweden that I didn't get. I was really close to getting, but I didn't. And I think it's, you know, when you're in the chasing game, you really have to, you know, you also, it's really important to have this sort of like professional athlete psychology of, you know, getting over losses really quick and just keep working.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so I didn't really have that sort of, it was, I kept like, I kept raising the bar for myself all the time. I wasn't really like thinking about, um, moving into an international career at all. For me, the pinnacle of success was to be like a theater actor in Sweden, and one of the actors that got to do films every now and then. That was like, that was the stratosphere I wanted to get to, and that was my dream. But then I ended up getting there really quick, like right when I finished school.
Yeah.
So it kind of forced me to raise the bars of my goal, and I think that that is really important, whatever you do, to, you know, being an artist or not. I think it's really important to always like stay outside of your comfort zone, to not get comfortable. You gotta keep challenging yourself all the time, or otherwise you stagnate. And then I think as soon as you stagnate, that's when you shrink a little bit, and then your confidence starts to wane.
Yeah, yeah. And it sounds
A
like that was a
long
lot.
fucking rant.
No, no. I mean, I appreciated the story. That sounds like super formative, especially in your early years, to be faced with those demons, to be really paralyzed by the thing that you love, by the thing that makes you feel
Yeah,
like knowing that you want to do this. But you faced them down, and look at it now. Obviously, it's a lesson learned. That wisdom comes from firsthand experience. But yeah, thank you for sharing. As a final question for you, then, kind of in line with that, you're talking about the importance of, whether you're an artist or not, facing down your fears, being outside of your comfort zone. Um, for the actors who are watching us today, who might be at that crossroads in their careers where they are trying to find that traction and it hasn't quite stuck yet, what would you tell them to kind of keep it up and keep pursuing through this crazy career?
um, I mean, it's hard to give advice because it's so individual. But I think it's, um, and the thing is, it doesn't work out for everyone, you know. So it's like, and
Mhm.
sometimes you see people that stick around too long too, and and don't explore other options of what they can do in life.
Yeah,
and
fair.
and but I think the most important thing is that your goals are right, that you're not preoccupied with the idea of becoming famous,
Hmm.
or becoming successful. Those have to be results of you falling in love with the profession and becoming excellent at your profession, at the craft, and following the signs that lead you to becoming better at the craft, better at the profession, and then the career will come.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I think, you know, you, of course you got to like work hard and be disciplined, and you know, those are core tenets of you know, and you got to find ways to build confidence, because it's tricky. It's a really tricky profession to come up in,
Hmm.
because in the beginning you're going to get so much rejection. I mean, you get more rejection as an actor, especially early on, than any other person. You know, you get more rejection in a couple of months than most people get in a lifetime. You know, so
Yeah.
you have to have a constitution that can deal with that and look at the bigger picture, and see the small victories of it, and you know what the learning process is. and sort of stay cocky.
Mhm.
You got to kind of keep telling yourself, you know, that you're the man,
Mhm. Mhm.
or woman. Um, yeah, you kind of got to stay a little cocky, and just to keep doing it. But I think the most important thing, what I see people, if there's two mistakes that I see,
Sure.
is that people sort of have the wrong goals, so they're trying to get to the result. Their aim is just the result. And I think for being successful and having a long-term career, and also attracting the right kind of people to want to work with you, is to like really fall in love with the craft, learn
Mhm.
the history of the craft, study the masters, uh, and gravitate towards, pursue projects and things that will help you build that, you know, that will
Mhm.
help you build
Mhm.
the craft and get better at that. and and then the other stuff will follow. The second part is, when you get a shot, be fucking prepared.
Mhm.
Don't
Mhm.
let anything, don't there's no excuses. And I see it, I've seen it a lot on, when I've, on shows, and people come in and then they have, one scene or a couple of scenes, and they might be in the middle of their careers and not just never made it, it never clicked in for them, or they're in the beginning, but you see them and you see like people holding these white pages on the day,
Mhm.
the sides, and I'm like, dude, those aren't for you, those are for the
Yeah.
crew.
Yeah.
You should know your lines inside out, because it's the
Yeah.
one thing you can control. Like, it's the one thing you can control. Okay, there are exceptions when people get the role the day before, and that's really difficult. And or that they get the sides the day before. Some productions are so stupid with that kind of thing that they don't. Um, but it's the one thing that you can, if you can control it, then you need to control it, because
Yeah.
you don't know if the director is going to be an asshole, if the other cast members are going to be arrogant. You don't know what the vibe is going to be, and you don't know how much time you're going to get. It's the hardest thing you can do as an
Mhm.
actor, is come in and just have one scene in a show where everyone knows each other and you're not one of the main characters, and you have like a few lines and you got to shine, and you're the part that they're going to come to last. And they got
Mhm.
all the principal actors, all the main players, and then they're like, all right, and we got to get this, okay, perform. And then all of a sudden you haven't been on set for 2 months, or 6 months or whatever, and then you have two takes and you got to get it right there.
Mhm.
And then if you don't know your lines inside out, outside in, how are you going to find a way to relax? It's so hard as it is.
Mhm.
So it's the one thing that I see, that people just underestimate how well they need to be prepared, and how many
Yeah.
nights they got to sleep on the dialogue. Like, you got to work, sleep, work, sleep, work, sleep, work, sleep. That's when it like really sinks into your memory. And
Yeah.
and so if you haven't slept 4 nights on dialogue, like work, slept 4 times, then you don't know it.
Yeah, I mean, case in point is to look back at your roots and that monologue. I mean, you were
Yeah.
you described yourself as going a little crazy during that period, but it obviously paid off. That's the prep that you got to
Yep.
do.
Yep.
Well, Joel, I feel like I could talk to you forever, but this was such a great chat. I really enjoyed getting to know you for a bit, and thank you for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Yeah, my
Um,
pleasure. It was fun. It was fun getting a little technical.
yeah, get technical, a little walk down memory lane, but we'll have to stay in touch. So stay well, and looking forward to see what you do next.
Cool. Well, pleasure
All right,
talking to you. All right.
bye bye.
Take care. Bye bye.